Onto the Houthi threat now. For the fifth time this past week, a missile was launched by the Yemenite terror group towards Israel, with sirens blaring through the southern city of Ashkelon and Gaza border communities without being intercepted. The drone crashing in an open area there, with the Houthis significantly escalating their aggression this past week. They're also reported to have stepped up their own defense ahead of an expected potential Israeli response. Israeli Premier Netanyahu suggesting in tonight's official candle-lighting ceremony in Jerusalem that they might want to take notes from Hamas, Hezbollah, and the Assad regime.
We are striking the enemies and those who thought they will sever our lives here. So it will apply to everyone. The Houthis, too, will learn what Hamas and Hezbollah and Assad's regime and others learned. And even if it takes time, this lesson will be learned across the Middle East.
And we want to welcome now Eric Mandel, founder and director of Middle East Political Information Network, senior editor for Security, the Jerusalem Report. Thank you very much, Mr. Mandel, for your time this evening. So simply put, are the Houthis playing with fire here? They obviously enjoy this, convenient geographic position they have, but there's only so much a bear can be poked, right?
Well, first of all, this should not be considered just an Israeli problem. They have closed the Straits Bab el-Mandeb that goes between the Red Sea and the Gulf of Aden. It's cut off international shipping. This has been a failure of American leadership in dealing with the Houthis, it's been going on now for almost a year, actually more than a year, since the first strikes against Israel. Obviously, what has been done at this point of time hasn't been effective. So from an Israeli point of view, this cannot go on being terrorized from so far away. But you have to realize the Houthis would not be doing what they're doing unless they were being supplied financially or with weapons or the building of weapons factories by the Iranians. And we cannot forget that even though they've been degraded, they are still using this proxy against Israel and against commercial shipping. And it's mind-boggling that there is not a terror designation against the Houthis by the United States or by Europeans.
Right. And albeit the fact that the Houthis are not your typical, quote unquote, Iranian proxy, there are different features here, and we will elaborate on that in a second. Let's take a closer look at the coalition here. We must admit the U.S., the U.K., the Saudi, Egypt, they're all suffering even more so from the Houthi provocation, much more than a provocation, frankly. And it seems to be playing simply too soft or at the very least not hard enough. What is the source of this apparent weakness?
I think it's resolve. I think you think about what happened when President Biden took office in 2021. He cut off funding to the Saudis for their war against the Houthis in the name of humanitarian concerns. He took off their terrorist designation. And it still seems that we do not have the resolve to deal with a third-rate power controlling one of the most important international shipping routes in the world, and also attacking one of the most important American allies in the world, Israel. So this is about a new administration coming in, hopefully is going to galvanize all the countries to take their gloves off, so to speak, and really attack the Houthis, not only maybe in their infrastructure, but maybe to do what Israel did with Nasrallah in Lebanon, or Hania, when Israel struck him, the Hamas leader struck in Tehran. Maybe you need to go after the political leadership there. There's been too much restraint in dealing with the Houthis, too much time has been given, and this is not a smart idea going forward.
So in this respect, Mr. Mandel, Iran's grand scheme in shambles, obviously, but when one is being pushed to the corner, not much left to lose, it might mean becoming not less but more aggressive. My question being, will Iran's response to its proxy empire collapse be a nuclear bomb?
Well, the rush to a nuclear bomb is something people are worried about. This is a window of opportunity. I've written and spoken and trying to speak to people in Congress about this, that this is the time for the United States, in cooperation with Israel, to attack the Iranian nuclear facilities, set them back 10 years. because that seems to be the most logical thing that they would do. We've seen that the Iranians, unless you have regime change there, which does not seem to be something that American administrations have wanted to do, which I think they should do. I think why should we be scared of saying, when they say death to America, we should be saying we are pro-Iranian. That means pro-Iranian people to take charge of their lives. But short of that, attacking the nuclear facilities, this is the time to do this. And
this in-between administrations period. And you know what, to an extent, listening to you, the Houthis are the weapons of mass distraction in order to pursue the weapons of mass destruction. Mr. Mandel, please do stay with us, because we want to take a look now at another major regional development, obviously profoundly intertwined. From friends to foes here, Syria's new government is warning Tehran to stop spreading chaos. As simple as that. There's been almost zero contact between the two countries since the fall of the Assad regime. But the tab definitely not closed here, because Syria might be taking Iran to court over its role in the 14-year-long civil war. Erlin Langmeyer has the latest.
Syria's newly appointed foreign minister, Assad Hassan al-Shibani, told Iran on Tuesday not to spread chaos. In a statement on X, he said, "Iran must respect the will of the Syrian people and the country's sovereignty and security. We warn them from spreading chaos in Syria, and we hold them accountable for the repercussions of the latest remarks." These remarks came shortly after Iranian Supreme Leader Ali Khamenei called on young Syrians to take back their country from rebels who toppled former Syrian President Bashar al-Assad.
I predict that the phenomenon of a noble, strong group rising in Syria will happen. The young Syrian has nothing to lose. They should stand with strong will against those who designed and those who implement the insecurity. With God's will, He will overcome them.
Tensions between the countries are high since Iran provided critical support to Bashar al-Assad throughout Syria's nearly 14-year civil war. Syria has long served as a key smuggling route for Iranian weapons to Lebanon's terror group Hezbollah. Iran has said that there's, quote, no direct contact with Syria's new rulers after the fall of Assad. In addition, Syria's new government is now planning to demand $300 billion compensation from Iran over damages inflicted upon the Syrian people and the infrastructure during Iran's military and political support of Assad, a source close to the new political administration has said. Meanwhile, Iran has warned against, quote, destructive foreign interference in the new Syria, saying that its future should be decided by the Syrian people themselves.
Iran's position on Syria is very clear, safeguarding Syria's sovereignty and territorial integrity, and allowing Syrians to determine the future of their country without foreign intervention. It's important that Syria should not turn into a safe haven and a place for the growth of terrorism.
And so, with the political shift in Syria, a whole new Middle East takes shape as the long-standing Iran-Syria alliance now turns into a dangerous feud.
Mr. Eric Mandel, still with us. Thank you for staying with us. So let's do, zoom back into Syria, because local media is reporting that 5 people have been wounded by IDF gunfire in the Quneitra area in southern Syria. And this is, the area where the IDF says they identified several groups, some of whom were approaching forces. This is exactly what Israel sought to avoid: confrontation at the buffer zone. A very delicate situation. Nonetheless, how do you deal with it?
Well, we're hearing, and what's reported in the United States, is that the leader, Jolani, has gotten all the rebel groups to lay down their arms, and that, except for the Syrian, the SDF, the Kurdish-led forces, everybody's agreed to lay down arms. I think this is a little bit of a pipe dream at this point of time. There are lots of different interests there. Just between HTS, the group that has taken over Syria, and ISIS, which still wants a place there, they will fight. And so right on the border there, you can expect there to be kinetic activity. Israel brilliantly decided to go into that buffer zone, take strategic areas, because this is an unstable area no matter what. And I think people are putting way too much giving much credibility to HTS to want to solidify Syria, and much more that he has reformed his terrorist stripes. We really need to see, we need to maybe trust, but verify, as President Reagan would say regarding this. And Israel should be in no rush to back away from having secure borders in the north. Maybe this is also in reaction to Israel accepted not having a buffer zone between itself and Lebanon and the ceasefire. It's maybe learning that lesson a little bit. So I think Israel, at least here, cannot have another front. And certainly this is going to be a place that we're going to be hearing about through 2025.
Right. And by the way, we are nearing this 60-day deadline in which Israel was supposed to, take a step back in the frameworks of the ceasefire agreement, but not necessarily so, according to recent reports. Before we thank you for your time, Mr. Eric Mandel, as the new administration, the Trump administration, is figuring out its perception of this changing Middle East, what would you recommend the Trump administration to take as the official stance vis-a-vis this the changing tide in Syria with this new and still quite mysterious administration there?
Well, first of all, we cannot abandon our Kurdish allies who are imprisoning thousands upon thousands of ISIS soldiers and their families. They have been with us to defeat ISIS. If we abandon them, that message to around the world is America is an unreliable ally. We cannot abandon our Syrian Kurdish allies to Erdogan. He has made it very clear, Erdogan, the Turkish president, considers all the Kurds in northeast Syria to be part of a terrorist group, the PKK. There actually are some parts that are there, but we cannot abandon the Kurds. As far as dealing with the Syrian government, I think we can do humanitarian aid, but no reconstruction until we prove that they are not jihadist.
Yeah. That is perhaps the bottom line here. No full commitments at this point in time quite yet. Mr. Eric Mandel, founder and director of Middle East Political Information Network, senior editor for Security Jerusalem Report. Thank you very much, sir, for your time. We appreciate it. Thank you very much.